Hey guys, my name is Larry and welcome to Military Stories. Today I'm going to be talking about what it's like to deploy to a combat zone as an Army soldier, what it's like leading up to deployment, the days before you leave, what it's like flying overseas, mid-tour leave, what that's like, how many weeks you get home, and then coming home, what that whole process is like, coming home after a deployment. That's what this whole entire video is going to be about. So the last couple of weeks I did Ranger School videos. I did the first phase, bending phase, jungle phase, and then I did a video on mountain phase. And I'll put links to that if you missed that, check it out. I'll also have a link at the end of the video so you guys can check out this video. I'm just kind of taking a break this week from Ranger School stories. Figured you guys might be getting tired of them, so that's why this week I decided to talk about what it's like to deploy as an Army soldier. And then next week I'll tell the final phase of Ranger School, which is swamp phase, which is done in Florida. I'll talk about that next week. And it's pretty neat, you know, some of the movements we did in like Zodiac boats and like raids on islands, and you know, moving through swamps where the water was up to your chest for hours. You know, it's pretty cool stories. So stay tuned for that next week. So I want to say thank you for all the subscribers. Thank you for all you guys that are following along. You know, I feel like we've built a little community now, so now when I'm telling these stories, I know that people are listening each week. It's kind of helpful for me. It's motivational for me to make sure I put these videos out so that, you know, I don't leave you guys disappointed. I want to keep coming out with content every week. I'm still sticking with the long form video every week, whether that's 10 minutes or 30 minutes. And then I usually chop up that video into a few shorts each week. And on this channel, it's all military stories right now. I'm telling stories from my experiences deployed overseas, in training, you know, schools I went to, basic training stories. I have some of those, some stories while I was deployed, and what it's like after the military. You know, I still want to get into stories of like transitioning out of the military when I was a security contractor, you know, and then, you know, who knows where I'll go from there. I might get into, you know, interviewing other veterans or whatever, but I have a lot of stories still yet to tell, and I'll still be putting out videos each week. Thank you for the comments and the likes. You know, I read the comments. Every time I get a comment, you know, I get an alert, and so I check when you guys are commenting, and I read your comments, and I try to reply to as many as I can. So I appreciate the comments, I appreciate the likes. You know, and I've also been doing this outside. You know, I have a family, I have kids, so it's kind of hard for me to sit in the house and do a video each week without distractions. So I like being outside, you know, where I have no distractions and I can think about what I'm trying to talk about. And so right now this is the format I'm doing. If you guys prefer like to have like a studio environment, you know, I could set that up. Let me know. Comment if you'd rather it be like in a studio and not outside. But I figured, you know, a little bit outside stuff is kind of cool. I've hunted here before. This is a hunting spot I like to come to. So yeah, I like to do different outdoor stuff so you guys can have something to look at. I try to put pictures throughout my videos, you know, like after I record the video, I go through and try to put pictures and video clips throughout so that, you know, there's something for you to look at. Or if you just like to listen to the story and, you know, put it on while you're doing something else, you know, that's what I'm trying to do here too. Like I said before, I've heard on my way to work, I hear stories all the time. I listen to YouTube podcasts of people that deployed, and I like hearing those stories, but it feels like it's all special operations. I only hear like Navy SEAL stories, Delta stories, special forces, and it's like, you know, us regular Army guys, you know, we got some cool stories too. So that's, and you know, I would tell my kids stories at night, like, Dad, you gotta write a book, or Dad, you gotta tell other people your stories. So that's kind of what pushed me to do this, was, you know, to tell other people my stories. And, you know, it looks like some of you guys have enjoyed it, so I'm gonna keep doing it. I enjoy doing it. I don't mind it, and you know, we've gained a little bit of a following, and I appreciate it. So I told you guys what to expect on this channel, what this is like. You know, if you would like a different atmosphere, or if you have a suggestion, like, hey, you should film one time at a baseball field, or you should film at a, you know, give me some ideas. So maybe I'll move my location to somewhere else next time. All right, what it's like deploying. All right. So when I joined the Army, I went through the delayed entry program, which means that in between my junior and senior year of high school, I went to basic training. And then I went to my senior year of high school while going to drill every month. So as I guess as if I was in the Army Reserves, I had to go every month to drill while I was in my senior year of high school. And then once I graduated high school, then I went to AIT, which is Advanced Individual Training, and then from there you go to your regular unit. And I'll get more into that stuff. I'll probably talk about the delayed entry program in another video. I'll talk about my reserve time in another video. But I got to my unit after basic training in August, and my unit was in Fort Hood, Texas. So I get to my unit, and right as I arrived, the whole unit was gone. There was like nobody there. And I arrived with one other guy that I went through training with. He's actually a friend of mine. We still keep in touch. He's actually a Dallas police officer. But I went through basic training with him, and then we got sent to the exact same unit. So luckily I had somebody with me. But I showed up, I go to headquarters, like, hey, we're the new guys, what's up? And they're like, all right, cool, well, your whole company is at NTC right now, which is the National Training Center, and it's in California. I believe it's Fort Irwin, California. And I'll try and like post a picture of that. But that's a month-long training cycle. It's called the National Training Center, but you go there, and it's like you're kind of out in the desert, and you're kind of like practicing training what it's going to be like to go overseas, go to combat. You do drills and missions, and you're sleeping in tents, and it's a kind of like a realistic field exercise for a month. So as soon as I got to my unit, they're like, you guys are gone, we're going to get you a plane ticket, you're going to fly and meet up with them in a couple days. So in a couple days, I got my barracks room and stuff, and then they flew me out to NTC where my guys were, and I was the new guy, and I'll do another video on that because NTC was a whole crazy story in itself. I mean, I showed up as a new guy and got smoked, hazed, everything you can think of. I mean, this was back in 2005, and there was still like hazing where they're treating you like crap, they're smoking you, they're making you carry stuff. I mean, guys are being physically abusive sometimes, but it used to be even worse the generation before me. My dad used to tell me that they would like put guys in the wall locker and lock it for like a day, and stuff that you can't do today. But they were a little rough on me and the other guy when we got there because we're the new guys. Oh, and they had already deployed once, so they deployed the year before I got there. They deployed to 03 to 04, and they were actually my unit 122 infantry was working with special operations that actually pulled Saddam Hussein out of his hole. And I have pictures of that, and one of these days I'll get my hard drive fixed. They're telling me it's like $600 now to get this old 20-year-old hard drive fixed. I brought it to 2 places, but anyway, I got thousands of photos I want to show you guys, which I'll get fixed eventually. But anyway, I have some pictures of when they pulled Saddam out because I knew some of the guys that were there that day, and they had pictures. Anyway, so they had already been to combat. Like, they were there for the invasion. They did the drive to Baghdad. They had seen some crazy stuff. So they hazed us because they had already been to combat, and they're like, hey, you guys have no idea what you're about to get into. There's a certain level of respect that you haven't earned yet. So NTC was kind of rough. But while I was there, I found out, hey, we're deploying. You guys are going overseas. You're going to Iraq in December. So this was August into September. And so you got September, October, November, 3.5 months, you're leaving to go to war. And, this is 2005, and stuff was starting to get really hot right then, I said before that the hottest years in Iraq were like 05 to 09. That's when the most casualties happened. That's when the most people were dying per year. It was a hot time from 05 to 09 in Iraq. That was the most casualties. It was... we were losing multiple soldiers a day. And some of you older people that remember, I remember watching TV, and every day it said 2 soldiers killed in a roadside bomb, 2 soldiers, every single day people were dying. It was a scary time. So when they say we're going to Iraq in 3 months and I'm 18 years old, I kind of expected it. I knew it. Like, I knew it was coming. I knew the day I joined the Army, 9/11 had already happened. I knew we were going to be deploying. So we knew we had a date December. So it's starting to get closer to date. We're doing training. We're going to the range a lot. We're shooting thousands of rounds every day. And man, I hope I don't get rained on. It's starting to look like it might rain. If it rains, I'll have to cut out and do the rest of it some other time. But so the last few weeks before we go, we had to do all of our medical stuff. So you go to this place one day, it's not even like the hospital. It was like a gymnasium where you have to go through all these steps, like pre-deployment steps before you can deploy. And I remember one of them was like getting shots. You had to get so many shots to go overseas so that you didn't like, yeah, it was like, smallpox, SARS, but anyway, you walk down a line and they're literally sticking you in each arm, walking down a line and giving you, I think we got like 8 to 10 shots, like 4 in each arm, 1 in your forearm. You got hit with so many shots. I don't even know what they were putting in us. And it's kind of funny because now that I've been out for 20 years, I'm like, they didn't really specify what they were putting in our bodies. They're like, here, just you walk down a line, you're getting shots. I'm like, they weren't really clear about what we were getting, but so you go through all these steps before you can deploy. And I remember some guys were like medically unable. I don't remember the exact steps or requirements, but some people, hey, you failed your blood work. You're not able to go over there because you could be a liability. And that meant that they had to stay on like rear detachment and couldn't go. So if you guys couldn't go, we all wanted to go. Like at that point, you train, you're training to be a soldier to fight, and you want to go do your job, and you want to go to combat. That's the whole reason why most people join. It's just not, we weren't drafted, we volunteered, we want to fight for our country. So most of us wanted to go. So if you went to medical and they said, hey, you're not going, that was kind of a bummer. But it was only a few guys that didn't pass medically. So we're getting closer and closer. It's like a week before we're about to leave. We know we're leaving in a week, and you get like a weekend pass, 3 days off, because normally you only get the Saturday and Sunday, but they gave us like a weekend pass. You're about to be gone for, our deployment was said to be 15 months. All right, you're going on a 15-month deployment. Halfway through, you're going to get a mid-tour leave for 2 weeks, but you don't know exactly when that's going to be. So this mid-tour leave could be the last time you see your family. I mean, we all thought we were going to go die. I mean, literally, like if I did not expect to make it home. To be quite honest, I was in the Army infantry. I knew we were going to go to a bad area. I knew we were going to get in some fights, and I honestly thought, like, I'm doing what is my purpose in life. If I don't come home, so be it. And that's really the mentality we all had. We weren't 100% sure we were all going to come home, and you get that feeling at the end of deployment too. And then when you find out you have to go again, it's one of the worst feelings in the world. It's like you escape death, and then they're like, all right, you're going again in 12 months. We're like, what? Like, I got to do this again? And, you kind of want to, but at the same time, it's nerve-wracking. It's kind of scary, to be quite honest. But, so anyway, we had that 3-day leave, and I remember that 3 days was like just living it up. I mean, guys were getting arrested, guys were getting in trouble, like, dude, just living it up, because this could be the last time you spend in America. This could be the last time that you have as a normal person. And for some people it was, guys didn't come home, guys died, guys got injured, guys got legs blown off. Some guys never came home the same, mentally, physically, and so that last weekend was intense. So we report back on like a Monday or Tuesday, and like, all right, like Wednesday we're leaving. And I remember like Tuesday night I made like the final call to my girlfriend at the time. Oh no, she was my fiance. I had gotten engaged to her like a couple months earlier, and we're married to this day. But she was my fiance, and I called her, and I was on a payphone. We didn't have cell phones at that time. Not everybody, some people did, but I was on a payphone talking to her, and all my guys in my platoon, they know how I was about my hair. I always, I keep it short, but I was always funky about my hair because I had it like a little bit longer on top, and I always like to like style it and stuff, and they knew that, and they all wanted us all to look the same. So I was on the phone, they came, and I was talking to my girl, and they came, hung up the phone, and they tackled me, and they're like fighting me, and I knew what was happening. And they brought me into this room, and they started shaving my head. And I was so upset. I was like, dude, I didn't want to have a shaved head. I already did that in basic training. I just grew my hair back out. And so they tackled me. They held me down. They shaved my head. But they shaved everybody's heads. But most people volunteered. They're like, yeah, dude, we're all going to shave our heads. We're going to war. But so they made me shave my head. I was pretty upset about that. Then like the next day was the departure day. So man, this was kind of a sad day. So your family's allowed to come there and be like in the area, in the company like area outside of the barracks, and the buses are there. The buses pull up. There's like 4 buses there, like big school buses there. I mean, they were like white. They weren't yellow, but and all your family is there. There's hundreds of people. They're all saying goodbye. People are hugging, kissing, crying. Kids are crying, and And then finally, they get all your stuff. Like, so you have a duffel bag, a big green duffel bag. I'll show a picture. And we had a rucksack of all the gear. They had a packing list for you. You know how many uniforms, boots, all this stuff. And we organized all that stuff a couple of weeks before. And we also went to our motor pool. We had vehicles, you know, Bradley tanks, Humvees, and all that stuff got shipped in advance. So in a couple bags. And the bags and stuff got put into Connex containers, and the vehicles got put on trains. The vehicles were taken to the coast, and then our stuff was shipped to the coast, and then they went on boats. They went boats over the ocean, and I believe they went up the sea, and I'll show a picture of that, and they go up like to Kuwait. And that's why, you know, Kuwait is our ally, and we have a base in Kuwait, and that's where we went first, and that's like where everybody goes, and that's our hub. So that's why, you know, the United States has footholds in certain areas, and so that's, you know, when you're going to combat and stuff like that, you know, we have hubs certain places. So anyway, all of our gear is shipped in advance to Kuwait, and so we're sitting there, all our families are there, the buses, and all we have is our bag and our weapons. So right before we left, they assigned me, they're like, oh, whoever was the best shooter in our squad was a marksman. And so, like, I was the best shooter. I was a sharpshooter or an expert marksman. So I had the M14, I believe it's like an M14 Garand or something. It was like an older style rifle, but it shot a 7.62 round, and it was more of like a long range rifle. So I had to carry that. I had my regular M16 rifle. And my second deployment, we eventually got M4s for you Army guys or people who know what that is. The M16 is the longer one, and then the M4s were the shorter ones. So I had the M16, and it had the 203 grenade launcher attachment. So I was also the grenadier grenade launcher with the M16. So I had that. And then I also was, I think it's just because I was a new guy, like, you're the designated breacher also, so you got to carry a shotgun. So they gave me a shotgun with a special barrel on it for like breaching doors, so you got to carry that one. So I had 3 guns I had to carry with me from our barracks all the way to Iraq. And I'll tell you about that in a minute, because carrying 3 guns everywhere you go, and everybody else, most other guys in each squad has just got their rifle. But me, you know, marksman, and then the shotgun breacher, which, you know, it's not because I was the best, but just because they probably just wanted me to carry it, which I ended up using it in Iraq plenty of times. You know, we kicked down every door we can, but there was a lot of doors that had to be shot to get inside. And got some stories about that too. One time I was shooting at a door and it wasn't opening, and my sergeant behind me kept telling me to shoot it. He's like, shoot again. And on the other side, I heard someone talking, and it was in Arabic. And then my sergeant's yelling, shots are going off, guys are upstairs, shots are going off, and he's telling me to shoot it. And I hear talking like the guy's trying to open the door. And so I stopped, and my sergeant's like, open the door. And no, he's like, keep shooting. And after like my 3rd shot and it wouldn't open, I stopped and I took a step back. And as he's yelling at me, click, 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 the guy said, oh, mister, he was trying to open the door. And, you know, if I would have kept shooting, I probably would have shot that guy, you know. That's what I tell you about, like, standing on your morals and principles. We always did what I was told to a point. But anyway, we're there at the, sorry to get off topic, but we're there at the barracks, and our families are there. We got our bag and our weapons. So finally they say, all right, everybody get in formation. Say your final goodbyes. Get in formation. So now it's starting to get really sad. We're like, all right, bye. Like, women are crying and screaming, and I don't think my parents weren't there, and I don't think my fiance could make it that day, because we didn't know exactly what day we were leaving, so she had to go back home. So I didn't have anybody there for me on that day, but I was just kind of standing there in formation, just kind of watching everybody else. And I remember, like, you know, women crying, kids crying. They don't understand what their dad is going to do. Makes me sad just thinking about that time, because, you know, at that time, you know, people didn't know if their person was going to be coming home or not. But so they're like, get on the buses. They're like kind of strict at this point. You can't even, you're like kind of waving over, you know, people are waving to their family, and we get on the buses, and, you know, everybody's loaded up, and now you see your family over there, everybody's crying and waving, and we go in buses and we head to the airport that's on base. It's not actually an airport, I mean, but it's like an airfield. And so we get to the airfield at Fort Hood. They have their own little airfield, and we get on planes, and we had to wait a few hours before our flight. And then we flew from there to Atlanta Airport, because that's like a main international hub, is Atlanta. So we get to Atlanta and we have a few hours to kill. Our next flight is for like 8 hours or something. But they have an MWR, like every major airport has an MWR. I forgot what it stands for, but they have like an area where military veterans, only active duty or retired can go in there. If you're just a veteran, you can't go in there, because I've tried after I've been out and they wouldn't let me in. But only if you're active duty or retired can you go to. Oh, we're getting a little rain, but I'm gonna stick it out for a minute. Can you go to this MWR? So we get to Atlanta, and we all hang out at the MWR to our next flight. So then, once that flight is ready to go, we leave from Atlanta and go into our next stop, which my first deployment was Dublin, Ireland. So when you go, you have to stop halfway where our goal endpoint is Kuwait, but you have to stop before then to refuel. And we're on a commercial airplane, so you take military aircrafts once you get to Kuwait. We took some type of commercial flight from Fort Hood to Atlanta, but you get on pretty much a commercial plane and fly to Dublin. And so I remember flying on this commercial plane, and I got my 3 weapons under my seat, and I got my bag, and man, this stinks. And we're flying, and it was a long flight. I mean, most guys just slept. I think they had like a food for us. They had a meal at some point, and it wasn't a bad flight, but most of us just slept the whole way. You're pretty much always tired in the military. Most guys will tell you that. Any chance to sleep, you pretty much sleep. So we pretty much all slept. But I remember landing in Ireland, and that was a unique airport. We have to get off the plane because they have to go through it. I don't know if they were just cleaning or what, but we had to get off the plane. We left our weapons on the plane, but we go into the terminal with normal people. And so here comes 100 Army dudes coming off a flight, and we go sit in like the lobby area, and there's like food and phone banks and stuff. And I remember there was people there, and they all looking at us like, what are you guys doing here? And there was a phone bank there, and I wanted to call my girl, and I remember I had like a couple phone cards, and I had to put in like 20 digits, trying to call. And I was able to talk to her for a few minutes, and it was like a $20 card that was gone within like 3 minutes. And so I made a call home, and so that was a unique experience. Other times, like on mid-tour leave or my next point, we stopped in Amsterdam one time. We stopped in Germany one time. And when I was a private security contractor coming back from Iraq, I stopped in Dubai, and that was kind of cool. Dubai airport is insanely huge. I mean, it's like a mall. I think it's one of the biggest airports in the world. But that was kind of crazy going through that airport also, which I'll probably talk about that in another video, because I was on a flight like I don't want to say the wrong word, but it was coming from Iraq, and it had all civilians from Iraq. So I was like the only regular American Caucasian guy on that flight, and it was an interesting time, because I was, as a contractor, you fly like by yourself sometimes, and so that was a unique experience. But I'll tell that in another video. But anyway, so you go to like this midway hub, and I remember one time we went to Amsterdam, right? Amsterdam, we get there, and it wasn't open terminal, and there was like guys with guns, like MP5s, that were like security around the airport. And at first I thought, oh cool, we got security because we left our guns on the plane. But no, then I found out later they were actually security against us to make sure we didn't leave the terminal and go off into the country. So they had their own security, like making sure we didn't go out. And I thought that was kind of interesting. Me and my buddies were joking on our second deployment. We were going through, like, dude, this is our chance. I see a vehicle. Like, if we wanted to leave, we could leave. I mean, we were joking, but we were thinking of, like, we were just tired of it, man. The second time, and we wanted to go, but we were joking that, like, hey, we should go hop in a vehicle and drive off. But so anyway, once the plane is refueled, it takes a couple hours, and then we get back on the plane, and our next stop is Kuwait. So we fly in a commercial plane to Kuwait airport, and I remember landing in Kuwait. It was the middle of the night. Now, from this point on, you only fly at night. Like military aircraft landing in Kuwait, landing in Iraq, you only fly at nighttime, because that minimizes like them trying to shoot RPGs or surface-to-air missiles. It minimizes the liability of an attack. So we only traveled at nighttime. But I remember landing in the Kuwait it was December in Kuwait. We got off the plane and it was like someone had a blow dryer in your face, and there was sand in the air, and it was hot and it was humid, and it was like in this dark place, and we're like, dude, where are we? What are we doing? And and we're all kind of congregated around, and we're like, what is this place? Where are we? We get on these buses, and as we drive, we're driving now from the Kuwait airport to where we have, I believe it's like Ali Al Salim Airport, and we drive to a base that we have in Kuwait where it's like, I'll have to try and find the name of the base, but that's where all the army soldiers are that are about to go to Iraq. They are in this base. And you're there for a couple weeks. You do training. The training in Kuwait is pretty cool. Like every day we'd be in these tents, and we'd wake up and we'd hop on these buses and we'd go driving out to like the middle of nowhere and, shoot. We would just keep shooting. We were practicing like clearing rooms and, CQB, close quarters, battle drills. And man, I have some pictures of that. It was like literally in the middle of the desert. I mean, there's me and my buddies taking pictures, and behind us is like desert for miles and miles and miles. We literally drove out to the middle of these places where there was nothing out there. We actually saw like nomads going out there, like people that lived in the middle of the desert by themselves with a few camels. Like we'd be driving, like there's a dude in the middle of nowhere with some camels, and that's it. A guy with like their man dress thing. And the man dress thing, it's like a long white robe, but it's like thin cotton, and it keeps them cool. I never understood why they wore that, but it keeps them cool. When you have the cloth that's away from your body and there's no like belt or anything restricting, there's more airflow, and it keeps them cool. I always wondered why they wore those clothes, but it's to keep cool in the hot air, because it got up to like 130 degrees there. And it was dry air, it was dry heat, but it's still hot as heck. It always just felt like someone was blowing a blow dryer in your face at all times. So Kuwait was interesting. I might go deeper into that because I have a bunch of pictures from Kuwait, but there's a base there. Some people never leave Kuwait. I mean, there's people that go on deployments that stay in Kuwait the whole time. There's a lot of Air Force people that stay in Kuwait that never go north to Iraq. And so Kuwait's a pretty big hub. But we were just sleeping in tents on cots, and we'd go out and train every day. So next stop, we were there for 2 weeks, and so we just kept waiting, like, all right, when is the day? When is the day? When are we actually going into combat, into the war zone, into Iraq? We were unsure of when the exact date was. They had to schedule like flights for all of us, and it just was not set in stone. So every day we were just kind of waiting when that day was. But so we finally got the final day, and we go to the airport again. We take the buses back to the Kuwait airport. And now we're getting to C-130s, and now we're in a military aircraft. And a C-130 can hold up to like 90 people, I believe, without gear. You like sit on this netting on the side, and so now we're going into a war zone. So we get on the C-130s, and we're sitting there, and we're facing each other, and we're flying. And I remember that flight was a little different, a little bit more nerve-wracking now, because now we're going into Iraq, where people are getting shot at. This is the real deal now. And I remember I fell asleep on that flight. It's like an hour and a half flight from Kuwait to Baghdad. And so I remember as we're getting close to Baghdad, we're in the air, I fell asleep, and all of a sudden I wake up to like I'm floating in the air. My bag was on my lap, and I'm like floating, coming out of my seat, and I'm freaking out. I'm thinking we're going down. And what it was is when they get into airspace, they do like this massive drop, because there's a point where they don't want to be seen by like radar. If there's a lock on, if I see a plane way up there and I try to lock on and he slowly descends, I can lock on and shoot. But if he does like a quick drop, then they can't lock on. They're going to get below where they're going to be obstructed. So we dropped so fast that I literally came out of my seat and was like floating for a minute, and thought I heard a snake or something. But I was floating for a minute and freaked out, and they're like, "No, dude, this is normal. They gotta do that to get into the airspace without being seen by surface to air missiles or whatever." So we land at the Baghdad airport and BIAP, Baghdad International Airport, and a year or two earlier they just took the airport. They took it over. There was battles, fights for that airport. And so we landed. I mean, we get off. It's still nighttime, but like you can see like smoke off in the distance, fires over here. You can see tracer rounds shooting up in the air. I mean, you can hear explosions off in the distance. You're like, when you get off, you run. You follow the man in front of you. Do not stop until you get inside of a building. And so I remember running off this thing. I'm looking around. It's like literally something from a movie. I mean, smoke over there, fires over there. You know, trace explosions. Like I just said, I'm repeating myself, but you know, it was scary. It was, all right, this is the real stinking deal, man. And so we get into the building, and now we're in the building, and they're like, all right, get down, and, you know, get them some water and stuff. And now we got to wait for a helicopter to get to our smaller base. So now we're at the Baghdad International Airport, which is a little bit bigger hub, and now we got to get to our patrol base, where we're going to spend the next year. So then next, we have to wait. I think it was like a whole day that we just like waited in this area, but eventually they had helicopters for us, and we go running out to that. You're always running on the run strip, and it's kind of crazy because when I came back as a private security contractor in 2019, and we walked off that plane in the middle of the day, and it was like walking off a plane in Florida. I mean, like, well, you know, walking off, everybody's wearing plain clothes, and, you know, I got a pistol and stuff, but, you know, I was like, dude, now this airport's secure. Now it's safe. It's a completely different thing. So it's pretty crazy, the contrast from 2005 to 2019. One of them are running off. It's crazy. 2019, it's like landing in Florida. It completely changed from when I was there the first, and when I was there much later in my life. So we get in a helicopter, and I remember we went to like, I think it was Fob Falcon that first time, and we heard the flight before us when they landed. See, they would watch, and when your flight would land, they would start launching mortars and rockets. And the flight before us, they launched rockets and mortars, and a few guys got injured. As soon as they got off the bird, mortar landed, and some guys got hit with shrapnel. So like, hey, when you get off this next spot, it's even hotter than the Baghdad airport. Now we're in a smaller base. They have us locked in. Every night they shoot mortars whenever we try to land guys in. And they don't normally fly in and out all the time. This is our year changeover. These guys have been in the smaller base for a while, so there's not as many flights, but there was a flight early in the night of the rest of our guys. We didn't all fit on one aircraft, so now we're flying in, and they said the guys before us got hit. So we landed, and there was no mortars or rockets for us. The earlier guys got hit. It was like 2 o'clock in the morning. They're probably all sleeping, the bad dudes at this point, but we still ran like our life depended on it. And I remember running through the dark and like into this base, and I'm like, dude, where are we? What is this place? What is going on? So we get in, and, you know, you get checked in, and, you know, the next couple days you kind of get associated with the base. They show you everything security, and they show you where you're going to be sleeping, what tent you're going to be in, what cot you have. And, you know, I had a cot. We had a tent full of 30 dudes, and no air conditioning, no electricity, just a tent. I mean, luckily we had a tent. You know, some dudes had to make foxholes in a perimeter, you know, and dig holes and slept in a hole. Some guys in the very beginning didn't have anywhere, you know, and so we at least had a tent. You know, there was times where rockets were launched on our base and landed right next to where I was sleeping. One time we were out on patrol, and a rocket landed right next to where I was sleeping and blasted shrapnel. If I was sleeping, I would have been hit, but luckily I was not there at that time. But so these tents weren't like bulletproof or anything, but, you know, but we had tents, no electricity, no air, no, you know, covering over the tent. And with the next couple days, we were going out on patrol. You know, a couple days later, we were starting. You know, it's 12 on, 12 off the entire year you're there, and occasionally you might get a day off here and there, but you're pretty much rotating day patrol, night patrol, perimeter security, every few days, 12 on, 12 off, without stopping until you go home. All right, so you're there and you're doing your regular patrols, you're going out all the time, and the only thing you have to look forward to, you know, you're there for 12 to 15 months. So we were supposed to originally be there for 15 months, but we were told within a couple months that we might be able to go home after 12, that the Army might stop doing 15-month deployments, because they were doing 15 to 18-month deployments, but they said at that time that they might reduce down to 12-month deployments for the Army, which is crazy because the Army did these 15, 18, 12-month deployments, but every other branch did not do as long. Marines would do like 7 months. Air Force would do like 6 months. Ranger and Special Forces guys would do 3 months. And, you know, those guys deployed more often, but we would have to go for a year, 15, some guys went 18 months without going home. I mean, one time in the mid-tour leave, but You know, that's a long, only the Army was doing that. And so I had my mid-tour leave. Once you're there for like a month or two, they start planning mid-tour leave. When would you like to go home? And so we tell them roughly the day you would like to go home, and they try to get you around there. And my second deployment, I actually planned my wedding to be on my mid-tour leave. My wife did all the work. She planned for the whole first 6 months I was gone. Her and her mom did a lot of the planning, or all the planning. She sent me a tape measure. All I had to do was measure myself. My buddies helped me for my tuxedo, and then I showed up, and we got married a few days later. But so you get 2 weeks back home, and that's all you're looking forward to. You're talking to your girl, your family as much as you can on the phone. And you're like, a couple more months and I'll see your face, and that's all you lived for, was going on patrols every day, and that time you're going to be able to go on mid-tour leave. And they fly you home. The process of that is you got to go to Kuwait again. You got to drop off your armor, your weapons. They lock it up. Then you go on a commercial flight from Kuwait to Atlanta, and then from Atlanta they fly you to your nearest airport home, which me was in Wisconsin. It was Milwaukee was the closest. So they fly you all the way to your closest hub, and you have to fly in military uniform until you get to your home of record, and then you can change out of your clothes. So I remember wanting to change out of that uniform as quickly as possible, and it's pretty wild, man. Literally got hit not by IEDs, shot at, raids, capturing guys getting injured, killed, and then I'm flying home, and 48 hours later I'm in t-shirts, shorts, walking around America, and just like you see in the movies, it's pretty real. Like, you'd sometimes be sitting there staring at nothing, and you would just hear shooting explosions in the back of your mind. A long time to get over that, and I'll talk about that later on, because I know there's other people watching that have dealt with stuff after they served, and it's hard to drown out that sound. It's hard to not be in that constant state of panic. One thing they taught you when you were there is to always have your head on a swivel, to always be alert, and to never stay in one spot more than a few seconds because of snipers, because of guys watching your position. So if you're sitting here talking with your buddy, well, if 3 seconds have gone by, you better move over here. You better move over here, because a sniper only needs a few seconds to figure out your distance, the wind, and then he can take you out. And we had guys that we were just sitting there, all of a sudden, drop. The dude just got sniped. I mean, there was a few snipers in Iraq that were taking guys out. And so anyway, when you get home, that constant heightened sense of security doesn't go away. So you're just, anything makes you jump. That's why loud noises would always, and it doesn't just make you jump and you're like, oh, that scared me. It makes you jump, and then your adrenaline starts pumping, fight mode. Because if you get hit by an IED, an ambush is coming, someone's hurt, screaming, it's always chaos that's following. So whenever a loud explosion or noise would happen, it would send you into a state of panic. And I still get to that to this day. If someone screams, or if a loud noise, it just puts you on this heightened sense. And another thing is, I was a driver. I drove a lot. And so when you're driving in Iraq, nobody stops you. You're driving, and if cars go in front of you, you have like sirens, like you're the police, and you shoot warning shots if they don't move. You shoot at them if they don't move, so that they don't impede your flow. Because I told a story a couple weeks ago about my buddy that was killed by EFP. A car pulled out in front of them, slowed them down. I don't even think I even mentioned that in the video, because I forget certain details. This was a long time ago. And for that EFP attack, when they slowed down and they were hit right on the side of the road, a vehicle slowed them down to get them to perfect speed, to be able to detonate perfectly, to make sure those two guys were killed. And I'll post a link to that. If you haven't seen that video, check out that video from a couple weeks ago. My buddy was killed by a roadside bomb, but it was a complicated attack. Anyway, driving. You don't want people to impede your movement, because sometimes they'll slow you down, they'll launch a mortar. Sometimes they'll slow you down, they'll take a shot. when I got home and I got in a car and somebody was going slower than me, it's not that I was trying to be a jerk, but I felt like, dude, you're just going slower than my rate that I want to go. I need to get around you because you are not dictating my flow. So my wife would tell you, I would get around every person that was going slower than me. And it's not because I was trying to get anywhere as fast as possible. It's because I didn't want anybody impeding my flow. I didn't want anybody not giving me an escape route. If somebody pulled up to the right with me and I felt trapped. And I drove on the median to pass. But Amanda would, I drove on the median sometimes, and my wife would be like, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah, oncoming maybe?
Driving like a maniac, and it felt normal to me. You get out of these situations, and now I've calmed way the heck down. I got speeding tickets. I was just driving stupid for years. But now, now that it's a year later, of course, that stuff finally starts to, it goes away after time, gradually, but, it's part of it is still there, but it takes you a while to adapt to being home. I remember the colors were so different. I remember landing home, I was like, man, everything's so green, and I came home in the summertime, I was like, everything's so green, and over in Iraq, everything's so tan, it's sand, there's no green or vegetation, and so, like, we need to appreciate this earth, this world, this place we live in, especially, right behind me, green. You don't see that there. Even water is hard to come by. And so I remember, just that adaptation. And so you soldiers that are going one day, or you that have been, you know how it is. Just, it takes some time to adapt and to get back to normal. And that transition is it's normal to feel off, and you make sure you talk to people. I talked with my wife a lot about how I was feeling, and I would suggest that. Talk to somebody, a buddy, your spouse, a friend. Talk to somebody about how you're feeling, and because you want to get those emotions off your chest. And a lot of times, no offense, spouses, but it's hard to tell your spouse something because she wants to be sympathetic. You talk to a buddy who's been through what you've been through, they respond differently. They're like, hey, remember that time we were all getting shot up and Gary, leg was blowing off, and you're like, yeah, dude, and he ate that MRE that day, and it's a different kind of back and forth. You're still talking about it, you're getting it off your chest. But if I talk to my wife about it, or if you're talking to your spouse about it, they might be like, oh, I'm so sorry that happened to you, and you're like, yeah, and then it makes you, you know what I mean? So the only reason why I'm saying that is for those of you that want to talk to somebody, or you're the recipient, just understand that it's a little different for someone who's been through that to talk to somebody who's been through the exact same thing and somebody who's just trying to lend an ear. It's not your fault, but people respond differently. So anyway, end of mid-tour leave, you're going back, and that's really hard, man. It's like every time you come home and you have to go back, it's like I escaped death once and now I got to go do it again. You literally feel like God saved you, and it's like, is he going to do it again? I've had so many close calls of roadside bombs, getting shot at, some stories I've told already. And so it's really nerve-wracking going back, not knowing if you're going to see your loved ones again. So you're saying goodbye almost like it's the last time again. So you go back, same process. You go to Atlanta, you go to Kuwait, or you stop at your mid-hub again, and, Amsterdam, Germany, Ireland. You go to Kuwait. You go back to your main base, Baghdad, you get back to your dudes. And every time you get back, your dudes are like, dude, you missed out. I mean, guys, they've gotten in firefights without you. Guys have gotten injured without you. Guys have gotten hurt or killed without you. Those 2 weeks you're gone is like, it's like you missed out. Another thing is, like, when you're gone for those 6 months, it's like the whole world goes on without you. Like, we had limited phone use, limited internet use. I only got to use the phone at once every couple days. I would call my girl as often as possible, but it would be like for 5-10 minutes every couple days. And we didn't have like internet access at all of our little bases. So, you know, and you don't hear about current events. I remember like Hurricane Katrina happening, and I didn't even know about it till months later. All these things happen, and music comes out, movies comes out, and you don't know about it because you're over there and you don't have source of information. So I remember coming home, and it's like the whole world moves on without you, and it's kind of sad, you know. It's like the whole world moves on, and it's like, and that's, you see in movies and stuff, it's like, does nobody know what's going on thousands of miles over there? We're going through the craziest stuff, and it seems like nobody cares back home. It seems like nobody even realizes what's going on. And I know you guys are, you know, see it on the news and stuff, but it just felt like that. It felt like the whole world goes on without you. So you get back to your guys, and then you're just counting down the days till you go home. This is a story about the process of leaving and coming, so I'm going to kind of wrap it up. But you get to the end of your deployment, and you figure out your days to go home, and you're really excited. And the next unit comes in, and you start to do your left seat, right seat ride. And that's where we're driving, and we'll take like one of their leaders, a sergeant, a lieutenant, and he's going to ride in one of our trucks, and we're going to show him around our area of operations. And we're going to tell them where some hot spots are. We're going to say, like, hey, this house over here, we've raided a couple times. We caught a bad dudes over here. Hey, we found some weapon caches over here. And we're going to show them what's going on. And it was a crazy story, man. So we were doing left seat, right seat rides 2 weeks. 1 week, they're riding with you. Then the next week, our NCOs, non-commissioned officers and lieutenants, are riding with them. Now they're leading the way, and they're still giving tips, and then we leave. So, man, we left. We were going back to the Baghdad airport to fly home, and there was a couple of our NCOs that were still back. And we got word, like the second day we left, that we had gone. I was with them. We went to this spot where it was an overwatch position. It was an old historic monument overwatching this road where they were putting IEDs in. Well, so we would go down this dirt path around and watch this road, and we watched it for a couple days. And we brought those guys. We said, hey, check this out. This is a spot where there's a lot of IEDs on this road. Well, guess what? Enemy was watching us, watching what we were doing. So we had left. The NCOs got in their trucks, drove to that spot. They put in an IED where we had sat the last 2 nights. We left 2 nights later. The next unit drives to that spot, hits a massive IED. It was either 2 or 3 guys. I don't want to say 3 because I'm not 100% sure, but it was at least 2 guys were killed. IED hit in the back right corner, killed the passenger in the back, killed the gunner, and like literally, I don't want to get too graphic, but these guys exploded all over our sergeant that was in the driver's seat. And I remember he was never the same after that. That guy, we saw him a couple weeks later. He had to deal with people that we just met, trying to show him around. And you could almost say we got them killed because we went to the same spot like 3 days in a row trying to watch a road, and then of course the enemy puts a bomb where we had just been 3 days in a row, and we shouldn't have done that. But man, hearing news of that, what had happened as we're heading home, it's like it's just, you know, you're heading home, we're clear, we're in Baghdad, we're going home, or we're in the Baghdad airport, we're heading home, and then we get news of that, and it's like, man, another kick in the gut right before you go home. So you're trying to plan your homecoming. Your family wants to be there when you get home. There's like a ceremony when you get home. They're like, we're going to go into this gymnasium, blah, blah, blah. And I'm trying to tell my fiance, like, what day? And they kept changing. All right, flights are delayed because of weather. Flights are delayed because of a sandstorm. Flights are delayed because of this and that. Flights are delayed because someone got killed. Every time someone got killed, we'd have a total blackout. No comms at all over the whole base because they never wanted the information to travel back to the United States before the military had the chance to tell their spouse or family. And that's what would happen. If they didn't shut down comms, a buddy could call a buddy that calls a wife, and then she finds out through a third party, and it may not be all the information. So they would always shut down all comms so that, just like in the movies, so that a higher up official can show up to that person's house and tell them what happened and give them a flag and, you know, do it the honorable and proper way.
She's still home. Let's go. look too, but no, 9:30's fine. Yeah, it's better really with the traffic and all. But can you send an update to everybody who's on the list? The ones who are dialing in, yeah. No, I'll send you the list if you don't have it. Hang on, I think that's the doorbell. And make sure they have the latest version of the slides this time. May I help you? Oh, hang on a second. Come on in, out of the heat. Jessica, I'm gonna have to call you back. Okay. Yes?
Ma'am, I'm Master Sergeant Miller, and this is Staff Sergeant Wright.
Yes, of course. I recognize the uniforms.
We're from Marine Corps Base Quantico. Ma'am, are you Charlotte Benson, mother of Eric Benson?
Yes. What's wrong?
Can we sit down, ma'am, perhaps over here?
Is there a problem?
Ma'am, if you'd like to sit down.
We don't have to sit. I don't want to sit. Please, come in here.
Ma'am?
What is this about? I have to leave for work in 15 minutes, and I can't be late.
Ma'am. The Commandant of the Marine Corps has asked me to express his deep regret that your son, Eric...
No.
Lance Corporal Eric Benson died in an accident in Iraq.
No. It's the wrong Eric.
So that would dictate flights leaving. And that was kind of hard for my fiance because she had to plan like a week that I could be coming home. And so like I literally got delayed like 3 times. All right, we're coming home tomorrow. And I would get a chance to call her for 5 minutes. Hey, honey, we're coming home tomorrow. I'll be ready. And then like the next day, oh, we're delayed. I'd call her again. Hey, I'm sorry. She was like bouncing around, staying at friends' houses. She was all the way from the north, traveling down to Texas to try and be there for me. And my parents weren't able to make it. Nobody else was able to make it, but my fiance was there. And we get home, we do the whole process home, flying the Midway airports, Atlanta, back home, man. And I remember we were all so excited. You're like literally a kid on Christmas. You're so excited to get home and see your family, just to get back to normal. And they had this gymnasium, and they had smoke and like music playing. We literally come running through this gymnasium with smoke. And I remember going through the smoke and seeing hundreds of people in this gymnasium, and they had us run in and get information. And they're like, everybody, get us information. They're saying, you know, they're telling us what's going on, and we just completed your 12-month deployment, and you get a 3-day leave, and they're like, all right, dismissed. And then it's just chaos. Everybody comes running out, and I remember looking for my girl, looking through the crowd, and I remember seeing her. I still remember to this day what she was wearing, and she comes running up to me, you know, jumps on me, hugs me, and I remember that was just like the happiest moment of my life. And you know, we're still together this day. You know, that she was with me through it all. Always stayed with me, always stayed faithful, stayed loyal. Every time I left and came back, she was always there for me. And that means a lot, you know. I'll never, ever do her wrong because she never did me wrong. And to stand by somebody through all that is saying a lot. And we're actually celebrating 16 years this week is our anniversary. And so yeah, coming home was a crazy process, and then you go through all that again, everything I was talking about before, like the after effects. 2 days ago, guys were getting killed. Now you're home, and so you're trying to sleep at night. You know, people are waking up. You know, you're waking up in a panic. You're waking up startled. You know, people would wake up and fight their spouse, and you know, not because they meant to. It's just reaction. You know, you were in a spot a couple days ago where you had to react like that. Your life depended on it. And sorry, this video went a little long. And one thing I wanted to mention is during this time, they also had stop loss. Only the Army was doing this, no other branch. And what this means is if you were about to get out, if it was your ETS date, you sign up for 4 or 5 years, 3 years, and your final day in the military, you process out and you get out. If your unit is deployed at that time, then you have to stop loss and stay in the military until they come home. My second deployment, I was supposed to get out of the Army, but my unit was not coming home yet. So I had to stay in an extra 8 months after I was supposed to get out of the Army because my unit was overseas at that time. So they made me stay in longer than what I contractually signed up to do. And what's crazy is I did my last tour, did my stop loss, and then like a couple months later they ended stop loss because it's almost like a backdoor draft because they needed people. They needed bodies, and people in the initial invasion, 03, after 9/11, floods of people. This was the most patriotic time of our country. Everybody wanted to go serve. How can I help? What can I do? But after a couple years and all the casualties we took, and it was getting redundant, not as many people were wanting to sign up anymore. So they were really hurting for numbers. But they're actually hurting for numbers to this day. So if any of this inspires you, please sign up. I don't care if you agree with the agenda or not. You know, it's about serving your country. And this is not forcing anybody to do anything, but I just feel like we need people to serve our country. And so anyway, stop loss. They had stop loss while I was in it. I was one of the unfortunate ones to get stop loss, which they ended a couple months after I was out, of course, but I happened to get stop loss. So, hey, that's the end of the video. I'm sorry this went a little long. I hope you guys enjoy it. Next week, I'll probably do the final phase of Ranger School, which is swamp phase. And then after that, I'll either going to get into raids, a couple cool raids we did in Iraq, or I'm going to talk about the private security contracting, or I'm going to talk about my life, family life growing up, because some people want to know more about me growing up. And as my subscribers grow, you know, eventually I'll do a live stream. You know, I would like to do a live stream at one point, probably on the weekend. It seems like most people watch on the weekends. And I'm trying to release most of my longer podcasts on the weekends. And so, yeah, thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing and following along. Take care. God bless.